change a light bulb? Don't hurt yourself, the answer's 5. One, of course, to change the light bulb. The other 4 to talk about how great the sun is. 74, 75, 78, 79, 1 against the Minnesota Vikings, 2 against your beloved Cowboys, against the then LA Rams. But you have to understand, having 4 Super Bowl rings poses a lot of problems to me, because no matter where I may go, it raises a myriad of questions like, well, geez, Rock, I mean, you got 4 Super Bowl rings. Do you change them every day? I mean, how do you decide which one to wear? I mean, which one's better than the other one? Which one do you like more? Well, I have to tell you in all honesty that this one that I wear on my right hand from Super Bowl 13, the second time that we have played the Dallas Cowboys, is the one that I wear all the time. And for various reasons. One, happened to be the best game I played in all 4 Super Bowls. Secondly, it was the only game in all 4 Super Bowls that I scored a touchdown. But you also have to understand, Sadie, that it was just not an ordinary touchdown. Okay, it was just not a run-of-the-mill flop your body over the goal line kind of a touchdown, because that does not take a whole lot of skill. I mean, any dumb slob can do that from 1 yard out, just give him the ball, let him fall over the goal line. No, this one was one of a great athletic achievement. One of an extraordinary ability, and for those of you who may remember it, now these many years ago, well, I want to thank you. For those of you who don't remember it, somewhat fuzzy or quick not in focus, and although you may remember that the Steelers had partook in the game, and yeah, maybe Bleier did do something, well, I would like to make sure that before we leave here this evening, is that touchdown will be forever etched in your memory. So I'd like to take you back very briefly in time to the game all those many years ago, the second time they played the Cowboys. And we knew it was going to be a very toughly fought battle, because the fact you just don't play the Cowboys twice after you beat them the first time, and expect them to roll over and play dead the second time. And that game had seesawed back and forth, especially in the first half, when all of a sudden the score was tied, 14-14, and we got the ball back. But more importantly, we got what? We got momentum on our side, and we started to drive the ball down the field. And as we're driving the ball down the field, all of a sudden we found ourselves down on the 7-yard line. And it was 3rd down with 1 yard to go for a first down. Picture this. As we broke out of that huddle, Franco Harris, my running mate, was lined up behind Terry Bradshaw, our quarterback. I am to the right of Franco. The play that had been called was just a quick pass play to the halfback, myself, where I'd go at a 45-degree angle down to the line of scrimmage, cut down the line of scrimmage at another 45-degree angle, catch the ball over my shoulder, take a 90-degree turn up the field, pick up 1, 2, 3 yards depending on how the Cowboys would react, and they always reacted well. Well, when the ball was snapped, none of that happened. I did break out of my stance, but my opponent across from me jumped across that line of scrimmage and took my path away from me. So the best I could do was cut it short. I took that 90-degree turn right up in front of him. Now, in the meantime, Bradshaw was faking to Franco Harris into the line of scrimmage. And when he pulled that ball out, looking for that receiver, myself, down that line of scrimmage, and when he did not spot me, being the smart, intelligent quarterback we perceived him to be, it finally dawned on him that it might be a broken play. So he tucked the ball underneath his arm and he started to scramble to his right. And as he's scrambling to his right, that sideline was looming up, opposite side of him, larger than life, Neanderthal beings with lobotomies chasing him. And then it happened. Maybe once in a lifetime will you ever experience it, when all time just seems to stand still. And our eyes met. Across the field. Now 40 yards separating us, and under pressure he released the ball, maybe a little too quickly, maybe a little too high. And it came floating into that end zone. And as it came floating into that end zone, I leaped all 5'9.5" with all my might straight up in the air as high as I could go. Oh, I don't know. 19, 20 feet, I thought. And I grabbed that ball and came down across that goal line to give us a score and a lead. Ooh, and a lead we never relinquished. That is not why I wear this ring. No, I wear this ring because it happens to be the largest and gaudiest. But you have to understand that every time that I wear these rings, I mean, for me, these rings truly are a symbol. And they're important, if you think about it, as all symbols in our lives are important because they're really constant reminders of the successes we've had, the failures we've experienced, the depths that we've prevailed, as well as the heights we've achieved, of the constant barriers that we had overcome to be able to get here. Constant reminder that getting to the top and becoming the best, or becoming number one, or winning a Super Bowl just doesn't happen. But yet it takes all those ingredients that we've come to learn. It takes hard work, dedication, commitment, and passion. It also takes leadership and people and a vision and a belief system shoved into a capsule that no matter what we may do, we love to call a team. And throughout our lives, we've heard many definitions of that word team. How about that acronym, TEAM? Together, everyone achieves more. How many times have we heard that? How many times have we used it? Well, we understand that concept, but probably the best definition came from our head coach, Chuck Noll, who defined a team simply as this: a group of individuals coming together for a common purpose and a common goal. And along the way, we have our own responsibilities. Game of football is an example. Common purpose, what? Play the game. Common goal, to win. Responsibility, head coach, coaching staff, get the right players, put them in the right position, train them, and then ultimately arm them with the best offense and defensive game plans. Players' responsibility, take the game plans, whether you like them or not, and execute them to the best of your ability. So that when you walk off that field, you come to the locker room, and you look at yourself in the mirror and you can honestly say, I did everything I could according to this plan. Because each and every one of you says that all the parts will come together as a whole, and that whole truly will be a victory. Individuals coming together for a common purpose and a common goal. So successful teams, like successful organizations, are really made up of two parts. The commitment of the individuals to their own responsibilities and to that of the organization, and thus the commitment of the organization and support of the individuals to achieve their goals. Two parts held together by a common glue called commitment and trust. For without that glue, obviously, it will not adhere. For without that glue, those two sides will fall apart. So ultimately, the one business that we're all in, as the bishop had made mention, is that we're really all in the hope business. Because ultimately, if you think about it, no man is an island. We did not get to where we are today by ourselves. We got here because of someone, something, an opportunity. We got here because somebody cared, kicked us in the rear end, pulled us through a door. We got here because of a mentor, a teacher, a parent, a coach, a drill sergeant. We got here because somebody wants us to go in a different direction. And all our lives, think about it, all our lives are built on that one little simple word called hope. And it has to start somewhere. Think about it. That little kernel of belief that you can achieve in your life. And mine, I have to share with you, started with the greatest football game I ever played in. I was 9 years old. I'm playing Dickie Weistrip, my next door neighbor. Now you have to understand, you probably don't know, born and raised in a small Midwestern town, Appleton, Wisconsin. For us cheeseheads, I mean, football was a big part of our lives. And Dickie and I had an extensive schedule. We had home and away games. And the first game of that season was an away game for me, so of course I had to go across the street. Pick up Dickie and play in his side lawn. But what a game. I mean, what a game. I scored 51 touchdowns. More important, I shut him out. I mean, the sucker didn't score. Think about that, 357 touchdowns. Oh my God. It was a game of skill and will. Now, just because Dickie was 5. I mean, shouldn't take anything away from my personal achievement. He was tough. But the interesting thing is that Dickie never quit. Dickie never gave up. As we played in organized sports and pickup games in the neighborhood, then into rec league, and then into grade school and junior high and high school, there was always a catalyst that would continue to pull us together. And it would be the success of that group, whether it be in grade school or high school, that would get you recognized for your contribution. And we had a great high school football team, brand new Catholic school, Xavier High School. And our brand new coach was a great catalyst. Lost 4 games during that period of time I was in high school. Never lost a football game, lost 4 basketball games, was the #1 ranked team in the state in football, was defending state champions when we lost that championship game my senior year. But because of a catalyst, pulling individuals together, you get recognized for your contribution. Because of that, well, I got a scholarship offer to go to the University of Notre Dame. And we had a brand new coach that year, coached by the name of Era Procedure. And because of a catalyst, bringing individuals together by my junior year, we win a national championship. And I become captain of the team my senior year. And because of that success as a group, pulling together, you get recognized for your contribution. And I get drafted into the National Football Team by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, just to put things in the right perspective for all of you, I was not their first choice. I did not make their top 10 list. I was the 417th person picked in the draft that year. I was a 16th round draft choice. But you have to understand this. There were 17 rounds. At least there was not the last guy picked. I might have a chance to be able to make this team. And people said, well, how'd you make the team back then? Well, do you remember who played for the Steelers in the 60s? That's how come I made the team, because nobody played for me at that period of time. And I got a chance to play 10 of 14 games. And I was sitting in front of my locker at Old Pitt Stadium. And the locker room there was cramped and pungent, and, well, laid out like every locker room before, since lockers are against the wall, players were on the perimeter. In the middle was a laundry basket with a couple tables, and on one of the tables is where all the fan mail would be deposited for the players. It was a place I'd never visited from the first day of training camp up through the 10th game of the season, not when you're the 417th person picked in the draft, playing on a losing team, nobody knows you exist. My mother, God rest her soul, never even sent me a letter. And all of a sudden, one of the equipment men hollered, "Hey, Bleier, there's a letter over here for you." Oh, I stood up maybe a little too quickly. Ever do that? Got a little lightheaded. Looked around to see if anybody noticed. Sauntered over to the table thinking to myself, now who's writing me a letter? Maybe it's a Notre Dame fan that wants an autograph from a former captain. And I perused through the mail, and my God, there it was. My first piece of fan mail. I have to tell you, I picked it up very tenderly, opened it up, slipped out the paper inside, unfolded it. It was from my uncle. My Uncle Sam. Greetings, it said. We'd like to inform you that you've been inducted into the armed services of the country. Now that was the worst fan letter I've ever received in my life. Anybody else who got their draft notification back in 1968, there was no lottery back then. I wasn't necessarily embracing my soon-to-be current change in life. And I quickly calculated my options. You know why? You see any old people out here? We had options back then. We could leave the country. Some people were doing that. And not me. Okay, to apply as a conscientious objector to that war. Yeah, but coming from Appleton, Wisconsin, what was going to object about? Could not show up, consequence, go to jail. Ooh, that's even worse. You could join the reserve or the National Guard, but this was 1968, the height of the war, all those spots were filled. You could enlist, but that was a 4-year commitment. Being drafted was only 2 years. My options were running out very quickly. Now, we had a game against Cleveland before I had to report. And I thought to myself, in all honesty, what if you got hurt? You might not have to report. So let me tell you this. In that game against Cleveland, I threw my body into every Browns jersey I could find. Stupid Browns, they couldn't even hurt me when I walked. Well, but I knew I was going to go. There was a certain relief. I mean, part of me wanted to live up to my responsibility. I mean, what would I tell my kids if they were said, hey, Dad, what did you do during the war? Now, I didn't get to Vietnam until May of '69. And a lot of things were happening at the time. You know, I thought to myself, I could handle combat. You know why? Because I had the nuns growing up. What was combat like? Well, it was like 16 years of Catholic education. I didn't have to think about how ridiculously unfunny it really was. And so when the bullet entered my thigh and I was laying on the ground, and blood was pouring in my pants, I did think about the nuns. One in particular, my 6th grade teacher, Sister Bleier, and all the stories that she told us about those soldiers in Korea in World War II, that when the blood started to flow, they started making deals. That's how some of them became priests. And I thought to myself, that's where I'm starting my bidding. You get me out of here, and I'll become I'm not going to become a priest, but I'm going to do this. You have my life to live with. You have my life to do with you. I won't complain about the bad times, and I'll share the good times. You get me out of here. So with a bullet in my thigh and panic in my chest, I still had my weapon, a grenade launcher. Let me tell you this, I was launching grenades not knowing where they were landing. We were getting hammered. I poked my head down for a second, maybe reconsidering the priesthood. And all of a sudden, on the corner of my eye, I saw a grenade come flying through the air, and it hit my commanding officer on the back. Bounced off, rolled between my feet, and it went off. Blew up between both my feet and my legs. And I said to myself, really? I mean, I really keep my promise. You didn't have to, like, get me hit by grenades and say, you got my life. I mean, So a sister platoon finally fought its way down and dragged us out of there. I was fifth in line. They dragged me through the night until they got to a point where they just couldn't drag me any further. And they put me down and they said, listen, don't worry, we'll send someone back for you. When all of a sudden, I have to tell you this, out of the blackness, or out of the darkness, all of a sudden, two black hands reach down, pick me up, scoop me up and throws me over his shoulder and starts carrying me to the helicopter. Now the helicopter was a long way away and the black man would put me down, my blood all over him, catch his breath, pick me up again, and continue on until he got me on the chopper. And I never saw him again. I didn't know who he was, where he came from. But I can tell you this, I'm here today because of a colorblind soldier back in 1969 who saw not that he was black and I was white, but that blood was blood was blood. He did more for me on that day than if he was my own brother. In some sense, we did become brothers in that brotherhood of war. I got to an aid station, very basically, then went to Da Nang, and ended up in Tokyo before I came back to the States, where I spent 9 months in the hospital, went through 3 more operations. But it was during that period of time that I was in the aid station, right out of the field, IV, morphine, drip, and then all those questions that we have that goes through our minds of why me? Now what? Where am I going to go? I had something you took away from me, goes flowing through my mind. Now across from me was a young soldier who was a triple amputee, lost his left arm and both legs. And every day the aides would come to take him to therapy. And I'd watch him grab that little trapeze that swung over his bed and he'd swing his torso into his wheelchair. And they would move him out to therapy. But he made sure that he stopped at every bed in that ward, and it wasn't a big ward, and he'd stop at my bed. And he'd say, hey, how you doing today? You know, I have to tell you, you look better today than you did yesterday. Because when you got here yesterday, let's be honest, you look like shit. We got some good docs here, we're gonna take care of you, we'll get you out here, and I'll see you back in the real world one of these days. And I thought to myself, wow, if anybody could be embittered with their lot in life, would be that young soldier having to live with those atrocities that took place thousands of miles away, but yet he chose to make a difference. I thought, wow, if he could have an attitude like that, what about me? I'm gonna walk someday. And as I said, I got to Tokyo eventually, and I'd been there a couple weeks when I got enough courage to ask my attending physician whether or not I could play this stupid game of football again because of the injuries I sustained. Now his reaction to that question was something like this. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna have a normal life. We're gonna be able to do the things that normal people just don't expect to get back in that gridiron. You just won't have the strength nor the flexibility to do the things that are necessary to be a running back in the NFL. For see, what he formulated from his point of view, from his stream of information, correct or not in his diagnosis, was a perception about my ability. But as my authority figure, he just sucked that hope right out of me. 2 days later, unbeknownst to me, I get a postcard in the mail. Simple postcard. It's got 2 lines on it. It says this: Rock, team's not doing well. We need you. Art Rooney, owner of the team. Wow. Somebody needed me. No, they didn't need me. Somebody took the time to care. And being the family that they were and are today, I came back. And they bought me a year and put me in injured reserve. And I had another operation. Came back the following year, made the taxi squad or the developmental squad, as they call it today. But they bought me 2 years to heal, 2 years to get stronger, 2 years to get better. And you have to do something with that. And so I come back, and it's 1972, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Thank you very much. team, but never carried the ball that whole season. Came back the next year, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Leading ground gainer. Again. During the exhibition season. Got to carry the ball once during that period of time. Hey, better than the year before. But all of a sudden in 73, my future wasn't looking up. I mean, to come back and make that team again, I was going to have to fight with every free agent, draft choice, and rookie to do so once again, and I just didn't think it was fair, not that life's fair. I thought maybe my life's going in another direction. And I left the team after 73. To find my life's work, as Chuck Noll would always like to say, and I was in Chicago, selling life insurance. When I got a call from a teammate of mine, Andy Russell, who was captain of the football team, he's coming to Chicago, unbeknownst to me. Big sports dinner taking place, sponsored by the NFL, Boys and Girls Club of Chicago. Guys are coming from all over the league. He said, why don't you join us? Hadn't seen you since the end of the season. It'd be great to get together again. Well, I'm not going back. I declined very politely. He pushed. I declined some more. And he pushed some more. Then he asked me the question, why? And the only thing I could blurt out was, I quit. I'm not going back. And he said, you can't quit. He said, if you quit, think about it. If you quit, what you've already done is you've already made a decision for that coaching staff. I mean, you like them well enough to make decisions for them? He said, no, your responsibility, if this is what you want to do, you come back and you make them make a decision. You back them in the corner. You give them every reason to either keep you or release you, but God, you don't cut yourself. I mean, the reality of this game is that we're all expendable. The reality of this game is we all can be cut at any time. So if this is what you want to do, you don't cut yourself. And maybe it was just the arm twisting I needed from an older brother I didn't have, and I went back. And everything that I had perceived did take place. I had to fight with every free agent, draft choice, and rookie once again, just to be able to make the team. Leading ground gainer during the exhibition season. Thank you very much. Now, the reason that I was a leading ground gainer during the exhibition season wasn't because of the fact that it was bigger, better, faster than all the other running backs. It was a simple thing that I played more than anybody else during that period of time. I carried the ball more than anybody else during that period of time. And given those two simple statistics, I better be the leading ground gainer during that period of time, because all they were providing for me was what? An opportunity to be able to make this team. And they had to keep me. And I was the 5th running back out of 4 at the beginning of the season. Back playing special teams once again. When, unbeknownst to us, Franco Harris, the starting fullback, gets hurt the first game. The backup becomes the starter. I become the backup to the backup. I've never done there before, so renewed vigor. That first game, second game, third game, fourth game. Right before the half in the 4th game, the backup gets hurt. And I'm inserted in the game at fullback, along with my running mate, Preston Pearson, finishes his career with the Dallas Cowboys. And Preston breaks one 43 yards down the sideline, scores, gives us a lead. We go into halftime, go over assignments, adjustments, and I'm thinking to myself, who's going to start the second half? Maybe those guys that got you the lead in the first half, and we get to start in the second half, Preston and I. And as a team, we win the game. Following week, everybody's still banged up. Preston and I get to play. And as a team, we win that game. The week afterwards, it's a Monday night game, an extra day of healing. Franco now becomes healthy. Damn. That's okay, at least I got a chance to play, show, prove what I can do. We had a pregame meal, much like this. Afterwards, we have a breakout group, all the running backs get together. We go over last minute assignments, adjustments. The coach gives us the first 3 plays of the game, just in case Bradshaw should forget, so we can remind him of what he did. And he looks around the table and he said, Franco, you and Rock will start tonight. Momentarily, you have to understand, I was quite confused. I didn't know how we both could play the same position at the same time. When it dawned on me I was going to play the fullback position as I had been playing, I was going to play the other running back position. Now, nobody told me that. I wish they would have. I'd been better prepared going into the game. But we get to start the game. And as a team, we win the game. So we get to start the following game. And as a team, we win that game. And we start the remaining part of the season, Bradshaw, Franco, and myself, and we win the division. And we go to the playoffs. And we win the playoffs. And we go to the Super Bowl. And we win the Super Bowl. And we play 6 more years together. And we win 3 more Super Bowls. And in 1976, Franco and I become the second set of running backs in the history of the NFL, each to gain 1,000 yards rushing in the same season. And after 12 years, I retired. Now, I tell you that whole story in context only because of the fact that no matter how determined we may be, how hard we may work, how passionate we are for what we do, there are times in our lives, and let's be honest, and we beat our head against the wall, that the grass looks green on the other side, and we want to quit, move on, change jobs, change positions. Well, I suppose the whole moral of the story is that if I would have quit, I'd never had the opportunity to play in those 4 Super Bowls or play all those years. But the reason I got a chance to play wasn't because of my size and speed, 2 things I do not possess, but ultimately because of one talent. For you have to understand, no matter who we are, what we do, where we've been, where we come from, each and every one of us has a unique talent all unto its own, and it's our responsibility to be able to define what that talent is and what we bring to our families and to our communities and to our organizations, because you're unique in that process. See, prior to that breakout group, unbeknownst to me, Chuck Noll came up to our backfield coach and said, listen, you have a weakness in your backfield. Who is your best blocker? He said, Bleier. He said, then start him. One talent. And all of a sudden, that fine line of one that connected my life came full circle. Much like the fine line of one that connects each and every one of our lives to where we are at this moment in time. For you see, if it wasn't for that one talent, I might not have had that opportunity. Well, then I got to thinking, well, if it wasn't for that one injury, might not have had a chance to start. Well, if it wasn't for Preston's one touchdown, we may never have played that second half. Well, if it wasn't for the triple amputee, one black soldier, one postcard, it may never have happened at all. And that, ladies and gentlemen, really is the power that we have. The power to make a difference. The power to have an impact. The power to change. Because as William Jennings Bryan said, destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. It's not a thing to be waited for, but it's a thing to be achieved in each and every one of our destinies. Along with Stephen's Foundation, lies right here in our own hands. We can become what we want to become. So in closing, I'd like to leave you with a few words that have been with me for many, many years. They go like this. If you think you are beaten, you are. If you think you cannot, you don't. If you like to win, you think you can't, it's almost a cinch you won't. Life's battles won't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later, the one who wins is the one who thinks he can. And you're all winners. You're here. God bless.